Listen, I have been telling you guys for months that the private credit boom was built on a foundation of sand, and today we finally have the hard data proving that the machine is breaking down. I have had so many people ask me about the secret to generational wealth, and I tell them the truth, the boring truth, but nobody ever wants to believe it. They want the easy path. The private credit fund that promises high yield with zero volatility. But today, that dream is officially turning into a nightmare. For the very first time in this entire cycle, the amount of capital flowing out of private credit vehicles has surpassed the money coming in. This is not some random bad loan or a singular troubled borrower. This is a systemic failure of a machine that was never designed for a down market. We are deeper into stage 2 than most people are willing to admit. Private credit was built on one simple, dangerous assumption. The assumption that the money would just keep pouring in forever. The pitch was that reaching for yield could go on into infinity. But now the flow has completely flipped. Investors are pulling out more cash than new people are putting in. So what does a fund do when the music stops? It can burn through existing cash, it can slow down new lending, or it can borrow. But the borrowing market has tightened up, and collateral revaluations are everywhere. Funds are getting sucked into a trap. And this is where the story changes. Private credit has spent years pretending to be this magical, stable, Mark II model world. But now it is becoming something far more dangerous. It is turning into a real market on the downside. And markets have prices. Sometimes those prices are not 98 cents on the dollar. Sometimes they are not even 90 cents. We have reports of debt trading at 65 cents on the dollar. Let that sink in. 65 cents. That is not low volatility. That is not hold to maturity stability. That is pure, unadulterated price discovery. The very thing this entire industry has been trying to hide from. Goldman Sachs is seeing more losses, Fitch is sounding the alarm, and big banks are hitting the brakes. Every single one of these stories points in the exact same direction. The cycle is shifting from hidden stress to visible, undeniable pressure. If it were not for the noise surrounding the geopolitical conflicts, this would be on every front page. Non-traded business development companies gave back $7 billion in the first quarter alone, while only raising $5 billion. That is a net outflow, a sign that the confidence is cracking. Total redemption requests topped $15 billion, and many of these funds are now hitting the 5% limit on withdrawals. They are slamming the gate shut. These business development companies were sold as a window into private institutional credit. They promised high income, no public market volatility, and liquidity through periodic redemptions. But here is the catch that the salespeople never mentioned. The underlying assets are not actually liquid. These loans do not trade, the borrowers are private, and the valuations are just math models. It works perfectly when the new money covers the old money. But when the math flips, the fund has to find liquidity elsewhere. This is a liquidity crisis disguised as a credit quality issue. They keep telling you the funds are structured to hold to maturity. But that does not matter if your investors are knocking on the door demanding their money back. Gates do not solve the problem. They only delay the inevitable. If the redemption queue keeps building, new investors are going to smell the blood in the water. They will stop coming in, and the fundraising will dry up completely. Then the fund has to sell. And when a fund has to sell, they do not sell the junk first. They sell the high-quality, standardized assets that actually have buyers. They are left holding the garbage, the hardest to value, toxic loans. That is how the portfolio quality rots from the inside out. Trading in private credit is ramping up, which was supposed to be the unthinkable. The industry was supposed to be buy and hold. But now they are trading because they are desperate for cash. And every time a loan changes hands at a discount, it shreds the value of every other loan in the portfolio. If one fund values a loan at 95 but the market pays 65, the whole valuation model dies. This is the end of the mark. 2. Myth era. Goldman Sachs just reported a spike in bad loans, designating 4.7% of their portfolio as non-accrual. That is a massive jump from just a few months ago. And Fitch just announced that the private credit default rate hit 6% in April of 2026. That is a record high. This is not just one bad sector or one unlucky fund. This is the macro reality of a credit cycle that has turned. The borrowers were financed when rates were low and money was cheap. Now they are drowning in floating rate debt, earnings are weak, refinancing is impossible. And the sponsors are not coming to the rescue. Lenders are stuck amending and extending, pretending that the debt will ever be paid back at par. But delay is not repair. Meanwhile, institutional giants like HSBC are stalling their investments, and firms in Australia are trimming their frothy assets. The smart money is moving up in quality, while the retail money is being told to stay the course. Do not fall for the narrative that this is just emotional panic. This is a systematic exit from a bubble that had to burst. The three big pressures are here. Credit quality is falling, valuation models are breaking, and liquidity is evaporating. If the private credit funds pull back, the middle market borrowers lose their only source of life. This is how a financial tremor becomes an economic earthquake. It is a grinding, slow-motion credit contraction. Capital is getting more expensive and much more selective. You do not need a Lehman-style collapse to see the pain. You just need the credit to stop flowing to the small and mid-sized businesses. The private credit boom was a gamble that we could skip the volatility of the public markets, but you cannot hide from the math forever. The prices are coming down, and the reality check is arriving. I want you to think about the hours you spent earning that money. 3,000 hours of your life traded for a paycheck, and you handed it to a black box fund because someone in a fancy suit told you it was safe. Every time you chase a yield that looks too good to be true, you are basically playing roulette with your future. Wealth is not about how much you make, it is about how much you keep when the cycle turns. Most people think they are investors, but they are just liquidity providers for the people who actually run the casino. The game has changed. Stage 2 is not just a theory, it is a graveyard for people who thought they were smarter than the market. You need to look at your portfolio and ask yourself, if I had to sell this tomorrow for cash, what would I actually get? If the answer is you do not know, then you are not an owner, you are a bag holder. The institutional players are retreating. They see the cracks in the foundation, they see the default rates rising. They are smart enough to get out while the doors are still cracked open. But retail investors, the ones who were sold the dream, they are the ones left holding the hot potato. It is a classic tale of incentive misalignment. The fund managers get paid to keep the money in. Regardless of the underlying risk, they do not care about your retirement as much as they care about their management fees. And management fees are easy to collect when you mark your own assets. But when the Mark II myth ends, the game is up. I look at these numbers and I see a generation being taught a very expensive lesson. The lesson that there is no such thing as free lunch in finance. There is only risk and the price you pay for taking it. Some people think they are diversified because they have 5 different private credit funds. But if they all rely on the same fundamental math of cheap, infinite leverage, they are not diversified, they are just levered 5 times over on the same systemic failure. I remember when I started, I thought the goal was to find the highest number on the screen. I thought investing was like a video game where you just collect points, but it is not. Investing is surviving. It is about being there at the end of the day when everyone else has been margin called. It is about having the liquidity when the opportunities actually show up, because real wealth is built on buying assets when they are cheap, not when they are crowded and overvalued. And right now, the crowd is running for the exit. If you are still in there, ask yourself why. Is it because you believe in the long-term fundamentals of these middle market companies, or is it because you are scared of realizing a loss? The biggest mistake you can make is falling in love with a bad position. Every day you hold a sinking ship, you are losing the opportunity to put that capital to work elsewhere. Think about the opportunity cost. Think about the life you could be building instead of worrying about a redemption queue that might never. This is the moment where you either learn to be an adult with your money or you let the system bleed you dry. The choice is yours. But the math is unforgiving. The math does not care about your dreams. It does not care about your excuses. It only cares about the cash flow and the terminal value. And right now, the terminal value of this private credit bubble is looking like a long road of restructuring and losses. I know some of you want me to give you a secret indicator or a magic timing strategy, but there is no such thing. The strategy is patience. It is knowing when to sit on your hands while everyone else is panicking. It is knowing how to value an asset based on reality, not on a model provided by someone who has a vested interest in the price being high. If you cannot explain your investment to a 12-year-old, you probably should not own it. And if you cannot find the actual price of your investment on a public exchange, you are guessing, not investing. The world is full of people trying to sell you the idea that you can skip the hard work, that you can skip the due diligence and just buy the index or the fund or the managed portfolio. But that is how you lose your life savings. That is how you end up working for another 20 years. When you should be retiring, the cycle is moving. The pieces are falling into place. And if you are paying attention, you can see the writing on the wall. It is clear, it is loud. And it is happening right in front of us. I am not telling you to panic. I am telling you to be objective. Look at the facts. Look at the default rates. Look at the withdrawals. And then ask yourself if your current strategy holds up under scrutiny. If it does not, change it. Do not wait for the news to tell you what to do, because by then, it is already too late. Be the one who prepares. Be the one who understands. And most importantly, be the one who owns their own financial destiny. We are all in this together, and if we learn from these mistakes, we will be the ones standing when the dust settles. It is not about luck, it is about discipline. And discipline is just doing the right thing when nobody is watching. Stay boring, stay patient, peace.